Welcome to the RCVR ERC Pros podcast. I'm Kevin Truss with co-host Sean Moyes.
Hello.
And wearing a gently used Clear Home hoodie.
Stains on it. It has a few stains on it.
Yeah, is Jared Dyer. Jared.
Sorry, you can't get the grease stains out. I tried a million times.
It's okay, man.
I'm just accepting
It's okay. You've been here since like 2010. So you're like the longest employee. So I'm really excited today, Sean, but no one's more excited than you.
No one.
So I'm going to let you introduce our guest today.
Oh, Kendal Maughan. Kendal Maughan is amazing. He's very good at what he does. I actually like being able to introduce Kendal because Kendal and I both have a very direct way of conversing. And that's how you get things done. And I hope that we kind of get into that on this podcast. I don't know Kendall's full background, though. So maybe you can fill in some gaps.
Well, maybe he can fill in some gaps. Why don't we hear from the man himself? Kendal, first off, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
You're so busy getting all the sales that it was hard to find a time. And so we're going to try to keep this one to a half hour because you actually have booked up today appointments with different companies. We're going to be going over things with them. And dude, that's how you do this job. And I love it, dude. You're just all in and everything. So
we do have to go back. I apologize because as the introduction, the truth is Kendal's regional manager over the team that has produced half of our total sales. So it's a very big deal.
Absolutely crushing it. But he's been here you've been here longer than I have. You were here before me. I think you came a year or two before I was here.
Correct.
And he's just consistently been not just a top producer personally, but also growing teams and everything there. But he was a director over the whole DoorDash campaign. He's done a lot of things, but let's get to know the legend.
You guys are so kind.
You come from a small town. Tell us, give us the 2-minute, bring us up to your time at Clear.
So I was raised in Monticello, Utah. It's clear down south. It's an hour past Moab. For those that don't know where it's at, we had about 9,000 cows and 2,000 people in that town. And so my graduating class had 50, and it was the largest class to ever come out. So it's kind of a big deal. And then, was raised there. It was awesome. I'm trying to think there's not a whole lot to talk about it.
Well, you're athletic. You played sports.
You didn't really have a choice. You had to play sports there. In fact, one time in particular, Enterprise came to play baseball, and half our team caught the flu. And so our principal got on the intercom and said, anyone that wants to play baseball, your excuse from class, just go up to the field, just to give you an idea of how small it was.
And that's crazy because Enterprise is actually a car rental company. And so the fact that they threw a team together to come play you guys is awesome.
Smoked us.
You wouldn't know it by looking at Kendal, but he's built for speed.
Yeah, Kendal. So thank you for that background. I feel like we really got to know you there. No, but you're one of the most positive people I know, but it's actually not your best attribute. We did have some fans of the show.
Okay.
We already did. We're like episode 4. We already got fans of the show, Jared.
We're getting followers.
There's T-shirts, there's swag.
We're doing something right.
Full 9 yards.
But yeah, so I threw out to a couple of people like, what do you want to know? And so the main thing people want to know is how did you get to, and then how do you maintain 6% body fat?
I don't know. I eat until I get sick, and then I stop eating, and then I go to the bathroom, and it all works out. I don't know what else there is.
I tell you, I get sick too. Jared?
Maybe I should follow that because I just kind of eat until I pass out. So
No, but Kendal, your attitude is probably my favorite thing about you. You're a pleasure to work with. You're a pleasure to be around. Where does that come from? Have you always been a positive person?
Yeah, I think so. My dad's super positive. Like, he doesn't let you have a bad attitude. In fact, that's one of the attributes growing up. Every time we'd have a bad day, I remember he'd always would say, hey, you're having a bad day, or this is bugging you. How long do you need? You can only have up to 10 minutes. So you tell me how long in there. And then after that, like, it's over, it's done with. And that's all you get to pout about it. So for 10 minutes, we would have 10 minutes to pout about it. He'd sympathize with us, and then he'd put us on a timer and be like, okay, like, you're done. And that was it. So I think that's where it came from.
Dad, do you mind if I go listen to the Cranberries song Zombie 2 times? Yeah, son, that's fine. But don't even start at the 3rd. Sean, what's your go-to sad song? Like, if you're really just like want to feel bad about yourself, like what song do you go to? And you can't say Creed because I know that pumps you up.
I listened to some weird stuff. That concert that we went to, Novo Amor, just really moody. It's just like, and
Everything from Finland.
And I close my eyes and I feel it.
You just feel the feels.
Yeah.
Do you
and
have
start them over.
Do you have a go-to song when you're sad to get even sadder? Or is that just people with like our body type, Jared?
I listen to a lot of Alanis Morissette. That's my go-to. So.
Oh man, now I'm depressed.
That's angry.
Yeah, good call. Okay. So your dad was a positive person.
Yeah.
So what do you? I love it when people are like, "Oh, man, I'm just like not as positive." It's just like positivity is a choice, right? Like
it's a mindset.
It really is a mindset, and you have to check yourself, and you have to. It takes effort.
Correct.
Like being positive actually takes less effort, I think, than being negative. But they're both a choice, and they both take effort, and you get to decide how long you stay there. So when you're in a bad mood, I actually think this is like huge because you really are one of the most positive people I know in an industry where there's always something going on, especially with like the amount of accounts and reps that you work with. There's always an emergency. There's always a problem. There's always somebody not making it as important as it is to you at the time. And it's a very easy thing to get, frustrated or annoyed, to say the least. And so what are things that you do, like specifically, like direct things that switch your state, that get you back in that positive state?
Yeah, that's a good question. One thing that I try to always
Other than call me.
No, that is true. Trust, I call trust.
Those midnight calls.
Generally, like every time you hear bad news or every time something crappy's going on, at the end of the day, the only person that I can control is myself. And as long as my emotions are in check, I can always try to spin that off in a positive manner. So when someone's complaining about how negative something is or how awful something is, the only thing that I can do is try to turn that into, hey, this sucks either way. Let's like try to make it suck less by being like seeing somewhat of the positive about it. And so one of the phrases I love is the whole "don't pout, figure it out" kind of a thing. It's like, hey, it's not getting anywhere if we're pouting or if we're like frustrated about it, but like we can still be frustrated, but you can either be positive frustrated or negative frustrated. So there's nothing wrong with being. In fact, me and Sean have had a handful of conversations where I'll be really frustrated about something on the sales side, and then he'll be frustrated with something on the accounting side. And it's really good because we're able to come together and like figure it out and walk away like super happy at the end of it. And so it's been like a really good thing to do. So
I believe that you don't hold grudges. Is that true?
that is true.
And I don't either. I believe that you work something out, and when it's done, you can let it go. And that's one way to stay positive.
Yeah.
Don't hang on to things. I believe that you don't.
I
hold on to
hate
things.
like the emotion of like holding on to something after and like walking by that person and like feeling that like animosity toward him. I despise that. And so like if there is that, even if I have to go back to that person over and over and be like, hey, like we're good, like I want to make sure it's always like that. So then whenever I interact him again, it's like at a super positive emotion. So
well, we're gonna make our next shirt "Don't pout, figure it out."
Kendall's face will be on it with a big grin.
It'll just say Kendall's dad.
there you go. Right.
No, but the power of positivity, it really is like, it takes effort. It's a choice. And when somebody is positive, like you got to fake it till you make it sometimes, right? You got to act as if, but it's not easier, but it becomes, you can train yourself how to get there quicker. Absolutely. For sure. And I believe that for sure, right? I've never had a situation that was bad, that was improved by me having a bad attitude along with that bad situation, right? There's a lot of times when I'll get through a problem purely by just being positive. Right? Like there's so many times that it'll work out just because of the positivity, where I could have like compounded it tenfold had I just been negative. Like, and then I notice it when I am negative. And so I guess what I'm saying is,
point. Yeah.
Have 6% body fat. It is easy though. If I was Kendall, anytime I kind of got in a bad mood, I'd look in the mirror and be like, it could be worse.
Please.
It could be worse. I'd smile and I'd be like, oh, my teeth are perfect too.
Okay, next topic.
Okay, one thing I wanted to talk about with you is, so we have some reps that are single, some reps who are married and things. I've always actually been really impressed with the way that you and your wife work together as a team. Like, you don't just have your separate roles and then you'll talk tonight. You guys are like very intertwined in what each other is doing every day. I think it's awesome. Like, and it's a really good example for anyone around you guys. So first off, introduce everyone. She's not here. I wish she was. This would be a much more entertaining podcast.
For sure.
Yeah.
She'd be all up.
No, but tell us about your situation, and then tell us how important that is, like having that support. And you guys, not just from her, it's a two-way thing with you guys. And so go into that a little bit, how important it is to really be aligned to be successful at your job.
Yeah, that's a good question. So when I've done this both ways, where I've tried to like distance my work and then my personal life, and it just gets messy because all of a sudden I'm like asking you to do things that are important to do work, and she doesn't understand. And so I noticed that we have roles that we've like divided up. So for example, like I go out and I make the money, she pays the bills, and so she cooks the food, she watches the kid. No, I'm just kidding. but she is good in terms of she's very, very supportive in my career, which makes my career like very, very simple. And so your careers, I've seen a lot of people where it just gets messy, especially in this where you're constantly traveling or constantly with people. But the more I can like involve her and like include her in those plans, the happier she is and the more willing she is to like let me go do those things, knowing that like it's also supporting our family. And so like, for example, the time when we went to Houston and you brought Emily, like that was an awesome trip where, you know, she was able to go out and like, that was just an enjoyable experience. Like for you and your wife.
And you.
And me as I third wheeled it with you. And so
we did everything together, just the three of us.
not everything, but pretty close.
That was a fun trip.
It was fun. But yeah, she's awesome. She's very supportive. And whenever I am having a bad day from work and I do take it home, the thing that where we would, right when I walk through the door, she's excited to hear about my day. And so now we've learned that whenever I come home, typically I'll normally just start telling her about my day. But if I don't, then she doesn't ask me until after dinner. And then she'll ask me and I'm in a much like, oh yeah, let's talk about it now.
You took your 10 minutes.
Yeah, I took my 10 minutes and I'm so much happier.
So one great thing about this podcast, starting with Isaac, we talked about emotional intelligence and all these other aspects that make you successful. And it goes beyond just having a routine and tools. And so I love just where we've even started, that there's like a positivity, there's a balance with your family life. And so in order to be successful, you can't really fake it in different aspects of your life. It's going to crumble somewhere. The best way to have balance is to have balance throughout your whole life. And so by putting balance everywhere, that's really key. So I love that you've touched on some of these topics already.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, I want to just like dive straight into ERC stuff because you're so good at it. Like, and we're going to get into it. And I know that's what people probably want to hear, but you're not good at your job because guess what? You were also good at the last 3 campaigns that we did too. Like you found a way to be the top of everything that you do, which is a common theme, right? I mean, Isaac came on top of all the campaigns he's been a part of. Same with you. You guys are related too. That's a little bit of nepotism going on here. No, but for me, the things that make you successful, it's not, you know, that you studied ERC more than everybody else, or that you read the whole, or you got into this one network and it parlayed into other accounts. These are like the positivity, the way your life is aligned, like your self-discipline, like all these kinds of things. These are the things that actually what make you successful. And I don't think you're good at ERC. I think you're good at anything that you like focus on and anything that you set your mind to. And so understanding like those things is like, hopefully what I'm hoping people get out of this is there's not a trick that he learns. There's not like one little thing he does different. It's all of these things combined. And honestly, the positivity piece with you is just so, I can't like understate, whatever. I can't like emphasize it enough of like every campaign we do, like going through the learning curve, going through the good times and bad times, you just stay so positive, dude. And it's not only is it like so much more fun to work with you, but it's also what makes you so good because like you're always like moving forward instead of like staying in something. And I like, we could all hear that. We could all implement that more in whatever we're doing.
Yeah.
I think it's huge.
Thank you. That's kind of you.
Should we talk about ERC now?
Talk about ERC?
Okay. So, well, first off, so you started in satellite, then you did amazing with the Amazon campaign. Then we had DoorDash, and we put you as the director over the whole program, right? So that was going to be your baby. At the same, about 2 weeks later, we started looking into ERC.
That's true.
And so I want to talk about that for a second because changing lanes and changing directions and things like that's a big part of just like your life, your career. You're probably going to have some pivots. And so what was that like, first off, like going from being the director of that to like shifting back into just like a completely different campaign? And like, Like, how did you, again, like, what was kind of your mindset going through all that?
That's a great question. One of the things that I didn't know this until here's a super valuable lesson I learned from that. And hopefully this doesn't deviate from what you're asking, but when in careers, everyone's trying to rise to the top. And I think that's a very positive thing. Like, how do I get to a spot where, like I want to prove myself and move and hit goals and show the value that I have to a company to rise up to the top. Right. But then when I was over the DoorDash campaign, that was like an awesome experience. And then all of a sudden it's kind of like you were running a program and it was a little bit of an aloneness of being out there, like running this program, trying to get people to buy into it. Because we just came off a very, very successful Amazon that you guys had going. And so it was an awesome learning experience where I was able to really figure out like who I was and not have to like, when a rep comes and complains to me, then I can turn around and complain to you guys and like, hey, or, complain or, hey, we need to fix this. But when you're in that spot, it's like, oh, you make those decisions, and it was a little bit of an aloneness feeling. And so it was really good. I was able to learn a lot about myself, a lot about like who I wanted to be and how I was able to handle situations, not having to ask for that other approval. And so when we transitioned back into ERC, when we went down the road with DoorDash was awesome. We did a handful of accounts. We were starting to get momentum. The opportunity with ERC was so much bigger, and it was like such a more exciting sell going in and getting people money back as opposed to getting them to sign up for something. And so going back to ERC, it was so fun to be back around you guys, to be back able to be in such a positive environment and where everyone was excited, and to be doing a new product. Like there was so much like hype and excitement behind it. So DoorDash was awesome and I learned a ton from it, but switching to ERC was by far the best blessing that I've ever had. So whatever role I might be in with ERC, it's by far the funnest thing I've ever done. Like it's been it's like the highlight of my career, coming back and being in an environment where the whole company is moving in this direction, and it's been really fun.
Sean and I talk a lot about the loneliness of leadership, and it is true. Like there comes a point, and hopefully everybody feels that at certain times, and has the opportunity to be in a position where they do feel that. I think it's a huge part of growth, right? So, right. Okay, I want to talk about a couple. So with some of our past guests, we've talked more broad. I actually want to get a little specific with you, because there's some things that I think that you do better than anybody else that I really want everyone to kind of hear. So first off, the way that you have figured out how to parlay an account into multiple accounts and really like get into their networks and really like the referral business. And the most impressive thing is when you're getting these referrals, you're not waiting until they have gone through the process, gotten their check, and now you're ready to ask them for a referral. So tell me, I want you to go through your process of how you approach a business, how you get into their referral network, whether they even sign up with you or not. Like, kind of go through that. And this is where I hope everyone is taking notes, and I hope everyone implements what they hear right now, because this is huge.
So initially, like starting off, my whole goal was the ERC has so many fun parts. By far the funnest part to ERC is getting a referral or having somebody call you that's really excited for your service. That's like the funnest thing about the job. The worst part about the job, and I don't even think it's not a bad part of the job, but if you had to like rate everything, the thing that I'm the least excited about of the job is going and cold contacting somebody new. That's the part that I like. So because that's my least favorite part. That's the thing I'm trying not to do. But there's so many ways to get around that you can have a lot of success. And so when I very first went to North Carolina, I went out to try to, because at the time the program has been going on for 8 months, almost a year at that point. And I felt like I was a little bit behind the 8 ball. Like people were asking questions that I didn't know anymore, or I just got so engraved with the leadership side of it, not the sales side anymore. So I wanted to get out in the field. So when I was out there, I moved my family out to North Carolina and was out there. And my goal was to knock as many doors as I can to then get off those and work that network, because I knew this was somewhat of a networking game. So when we were there for 4 straight days, I went out and I was up there, started at 8:30 in the morning and went end until about 6, almost 6:30 at night. Because some businesses I noticed were open depending on the demographics you go to. And even sometimes we would go and hit restaurants later at night that were open after 4 o'clock. So for 4 straight days, I worked my can off, just going door after door after door and getting in. And the thing that the pitch is whatever, there's no secret pitch to this. A lot of it's just like the hard work and getting in there. The ERC will sell itself. It's the simplest thing to do when you're in front of someone, as long as you can get them in the right scenario. And so getting in front of the owners was a little bit challenging trying to find like when they were there. And so I noticed that if I would start on smaller businesses first, the owners were typically in, and then I was able to work my way up to bigger businesses. And so as I would go in, if the owner
when you say smaller, just to give everyone context, when Kendal says smaller businesses, he's talking 15, 20, 25 employees. Yeah,
correct.
And he works his way up into hundreds of employee businesses. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, because everyone has a different idea of what a small business is. Your small businesses still have about 20 employees. I've noticed.
Yeah. And so you're exactly correct. Thanks for clarifying. Yeah. So when I would go in there, if the owner wasn't there, I would always try to yes my way into getting the receptionist to commit when the owner was there. Oh, the owner's not here. Whether he was or she's not, she might have been lying to me. Well, is the owner in typically in the mornings or the afternoons every day? Oh, he's only in on Tuesday and Thursdays. Is it morning time, afternoon? So I narrowed down when he would be in there so I could go back again. So that helped me a ton. At first, I didn't figure out. I was just trying to go in for the owners, and then I could get the receptionist to commit to me when the owner would be in there. And every time I'd go back again, they were generally there. And so that was kind of cool. So then when I would be with the owner for about 4 straight days, I knocked for so many hours finding businesses. And after on the 5th day, I didn't have to knock again because I had such a big pool of people to go back to or to work with. And then from that point forward, I didn't ever go out and cold talk to another business because I would work through that referral pool. So how it would work, the best time to ask for referrals. So my whole job was to get in there and to use my personality to make this a super positive and simple experience. ERC it's not complex, but we can make it very complex. And so my whole goal in there was to make it so simple. Like you get in there, hey, I just need to give you a 15-minute spill of what it is, and then let me help you with all the documents and give you this white glove, robust experience to where you can't refuse to give me a referral because you had such a good experience. Like think about anytime you go into anything, and if the customer service is good, you always are like, you'll have a conversation with someone about it. So that was my whole thing, was how do I give this person the best customer service to where they have to give me a referral? And so if I was in the business, I would try to be in and out within an hour between meeting them for the first time, or maybe the second time if the first time was a quick, hey, when are you free for an hour? But I would go in there, and within an hour, I would walk out with ERC explained, all the documents uploaded, completely all the way done, and then at least 3 or more referrals in an hour. That was my goal. So I would hold my expectations to those, to where like I would have a timer in my pocket and I would be moving through these, and I familiarized myself so well with the uploads. It was pretty simple because I knew that if I wasn't aware with the client to have the client upload, the client would probably get it uploaded, but it was still going to take a lot longer, and it's not the experience that I wanted him to have. Like I can control that, not them, right? Now, every scenario is different because a lot of times I'll have deals over the phone, or we might not be in the same market. So I'm not saying that's how every deal went, but that's a picture perfect scenario of what I was trying to create with these sales. And then to answer this long answer to your question.
I love it. No. This is exactly what I wanted.
But so the goal was I go in and I try to keep the ERC pitch really short and basic because it's not complex. And if you over explain it, it sounds complicated, right? And it is a very simple thing.
And when you over explain and they get complicated, 2 things happens. They feel like this is a bigger decision than it needs to be.
Correct.
And if a customer's confused, what is their answer? No matter what, it's no. It's not no because I don't understand this. Can you explain this to me? And then it might be yes. It's no, I don't understand. I kind of feel stupid that I don't understand. So I'm just going to say no because I'm confused, right?
Correct.
By keeping it simple, it means you actually understand it also. Keep going.
One of my goals too, on that same lines, when I very first started this, a lot of business owners would say, this sounds awesome. I need to talk to my accountant. And as I practiced more and more, that happened less and less because I would do a good enough job at explaining it to where it's like, this is your decision. Your accountant can look over everything, but like, let's get this thing going. It was just a whole different mindset to where the accountant never got in the way anymore. And that was really cool. So I tried to explain it in such a simple manner. And then after that, move right into not even telling them, okay, now the next step is uploading. It's, hey, I'm explaining it. Now let's pull up your computer and let's start this process and I'll help you through it. So all of a sudden we're uploading before he even realizes kind of what he's doing. That was my goal. And then throughout the upload process, because there's some times where there's some I'm with this client for an hour, maybe an hour and 15. There's some downtimes in there. So that's what I'm getting to know. I'm like, how's your family? How many kids do you have? How long have you been in this business for? Really feeling into that ego of everyone likes to be told they're pretty.
Yeah, I love how long have you been in this business for? Because whatever they answer there, my next move, if it's a long time, like, oh man, you must know everybody in this industry. right?
Exactly,
I'm saying that because I'm about to ask you for referrals. If you're like, oh yeah, I've been doing this forever. Everyone loves to pat themselves on the back. So
Exactly.
I give them the chance to tell me that they know everybody. So when I ask them, they can't tell me that they don't know anybody, right? Or
spot
if
on.
they're new, I'm like, oh, you're new in this business. Well, that's good. I hope a lot of people in the industry have helped you out. Have you been able to meet some people in the industry? And nobody comes in blind to anything. So they're going to say yes to that. And then when you ask for a referral, they can't tell you they don't really know anybody anymore, right? So I get them to admit to me that they do know people in the industry. So when I ask them for something, I've taken that bullet away.
You literally hit it spot on, like perfectly. And that's like the whole goal is everyone knows you don't get into industry unless you know how to do that industry. So they learned it from someone. And so that's why it's really simple, because once you find your niche market, whatever it might be, you can a lot of times stay in that because those referrals are going to be from that market. And so just like you talked about asking those questions of like, hey, how did you get in this market? You seem like you're very successful here. Like, how did you get to this spot? Who helped you? You're asking all these questions. And then at the very last, like when the upload is finally complete, because there is a lot of downtime there, when the upload is complete, you've given them an awesome pitch. You upload everything. They don't have to be bugged by anyone. They're not getting called. They're done. And then at that point of like, hey, if you had a good experience, like, it sounds like you have a lot of friends in the industry. And I'm sure a lot of people that don't have this ERC credit, like who can you refer me to? So that's by far the best time to ask it. I used to ask it once they got their paperwork and signed, but so much time had gone by without me being there constantly that they forget about their friends or they're in a hurry. Like it's the wrong time to ask.
I want to just say, people don't give referrals when it logically makes sense. People
Correct.
give referrals when it emotionally makes sense.
You
And
hit it right on the head.
If you give them that experience from the start, there's never a better time emotionally when they're going to want to introduce you to their friends. And if you do it right, they're not just giving you names; they're calling their friends in front of you. Sean, what were you going to say?
I just want to make sure we put 2 exclamation points on what Kendall has said. The first one is that psychology, the brain says that when you engage with somebody in a sales scenario, you've got 30 seconds to make like your initial mark. Super important. Everything that happens over the next 15 minutes is information, and you have to spike it to keep them there. And then what you say in the last minute is ultimately important. So when you're engaging, people need to understand Kendall does a really great job of this, but the way you start in a very short amount of time and the way you finish are really, really important. And then it was explained in detail, but the real message is simply, if you're a rep and you're new and you're just selling the product, you're going to keep fighting the same battle every client you go into. Where if you are also selling a referral like mindset, then your job is going to get easier, which is what you're so good at. I'm glad that we spent some time talking about that. But you've got to be selling the idea of you're going after referrals, not just selling the ERC product.
Yep.
Well, hey, Kendall, you need to go jump on with a client. I was going to try to keep this to half hour, but there's so many more questions that I promise people could like get out of your head, right? And so I would love to keep this going. Let's stop right now. Let you go close down however many Zoom calls you have today. But let's jump back on for a part 2. We're going to go over a couple other things that I really think people could learn a lot from you. And then I'm going to just tell you this. I'm going to write down just some common objections that people are getting when they're walking into businesses, and I'm just going to rapid fire them to you, and you're going to overcome them the way that you do it with there, right? And we've never done that before, but I guarantee people will get more out of that than anything else. So you guys, we'll be back with part 2 with Kendal Maughan. We are coming back with part 2. I feel like it was only a half hour, so that probably didn't feel too long. But we were gonna try to keep it to a half hour. I felt like it was rolling. I felt like you have so much more information that I wanted to get out to everybody. And so, so here's part 2 of
Part 2.
Yep. An hour-long podcast with 2 parts that are all together. So we probably didn't even need to acknowledge it. But hey, so before we get going, I do want to go over a couple more things with you that are huge, especially for first-year reps, and then. Or not first year, but like first week, like brand new reps. And then also overcoming just common objections, especially, right? And then kind of where you found your success. So we're going to get to all that. But I want to talk about referrals for one more minute because I couldn't quit thinking about it last night. And so, so I'm going to go over a couple things, right? So here's a little referral, how to get referrals training. So I always hear the best way to get referrals is to just
ask.
Okay. That is not the best way. that is the better than nothing way to get referrals, right? So it is so much better. You're not going to get them if you don't ask, most likely, right? And so if you haven't been spending the whole conversation setting it up, well, yeah, then it's better to ask before you leave than not ask. But I'm going to go over like the way to actually get referrals, the way that the best people in the world I've seen do it. This is what they do. So first off, it's not about how good the deal is. It's about how much they like you.
It's true.
Do you agree with that, Kendal?
100%.
Okay. I've seen Kendal work. He's giving them information, but he's getting the customer to like him really, really quickly. You're very good at that. Do you agree?
I agree.
Has anyone given you a referral that didn't like you?
No.
Okay, so it's important. Okay, so number one, more important than what you're selling is how much they like you, right? And your connection with them. The second thing is you have to be honest, right? If you have given them even 1% in their mind that you might not be honest, or you might BS your way through a question where you didn't know the answer, they might be okay with it because they're already down the road, but they're not going to introduce you to their friends.
It's true.
Right?
100%.
Now, Kendal, you're one of the most dishonest people I've ever met. So how do you still get referrals? I'm just joking. No, but have you ever realized that you kind of made a mistake, and even though you overcame it and still got the sale, you were almost afraid to ask for a referral because it got weird there for a minute?
Especially I've had a lot of experience with this with when we had television, when we were collecting activation fees. That was when, like, if I was trying to tell someone, hey, we have to charge this fee, and then the next fee, or then the next person I waived it or whatever, and then they're asking about it, and I like had to kind of weasel my way through that. It never really went very good, and I didn't get a lot of referrals that way.
No, it's true.
So
right?
even with ERC, it'd be the same exact scenario though.
Hey, I always train on trust. I think that's a very valuable part in today's world, and it's proven through studies. So if somebody likes you and you're honest, then that leads to them trusting you, which is the key element, right?
Yeah, if they like you, they'll talk to you. If they trust you, they'll buy from you, right? Okay. The third thing is you have to get good at what you're doing, right? They need to have confidence in you, but more importantly, you have to be comfortable enough with talking about this with customers, with new people, explaining it, answer the questions, overcoming objections. You have to be so comfortable with that you can then focus your attention on the person you're talking to, and throughout the sale that you can be setting them up to get referrals. And I'll explain that in a minute, right? So The better you are at your craft, whatever it is you're selling, the better chance that you have to actually be able to be competent enough and just put yourself in a position to where you can be setting them up, right? So
on that same lines, I think with that too is whenever you're talking to someone and you can make it super simple, when they have the aha moment of, oh, that makes sense. Like I was confused about that thing. Like when you can make your craft, like you're talking about, so simple and it makes sense. That's awesome.
Yeah, I notice I go through with any sale, right? At the very start, I overtalk like crazy because I actually don't understand it, right? Yep. Once I get it, I feel it out. But by the time I'm really good at it, like with the products that I've sold for years and years, my pitch got down to like 20, like I've had 20-minute pitches before in the same product, but I can get it down to like under a minute and it achieves the same thing. And it's so simplified and understandable, but it shows them that I don't need to overcomplicate this, right? So anyways, so knowing your craft, knowing whatever it is you're selling is absolutely huge. So I think that there's 3 ways that you can get referrals. So number 1 is just ask, right? At the end of your interaction, you're like, hey, the best way I work is through referral. I mean, you can come up with a good line, but the chances of getting that if you haven't been setting them up for it is not as high as if you had been prepping them for that question, right? So best way, if you're doing this especially, is just ask. The second way is to ask them questions, kind of like the one we said, like, oh, how long have you been in this industry? Oh, you probably know a lot of business owners, or if they're new, oh, well, there's probably a lot of people in this industry that have helped you out that it'd be nice to repay them, huh? Or whatever, right? You kind of set them up that way. The third way, and the best people I've ever seen at it is, and same with knocking, right? So somebody's struggling, they ask you to go with them. And so you're like, okay, cool, yeah. And they're like, they always want to watch you, right? And so you go, you get the sale. And what do they always say? Oh, well, I would have sold that one. That guy didn't even give you any, or they watch you get referrals. Like, well, that guy offered them to you. Like he would have given them to me. I wanted to see one where like they didn't want to give them to you and you still got them to give you a referral, right?
Correct.
What they don't understand is you were asking for that referral from the second you met them, right? So there's a saying I love is, you can lead a horse to water, but you
Can't force it to drink.
can't make him drink, but you can salt the haystack. All right. So if throughout the sale you're salting the haystack, if you're preparing them, the best people at referrals rarely have to ask for them.
It's true.
They usually get offered. So Kendal, how often do business owners actually like bring up, hey, could you do this for my friends?
Almost every single time.
Yeah.
Like by the time when it comes to asking, it's not so much an asking thing. It's by the time you're done, they normally will be like, hey, this was an awesome process. Like I have my mother or my father-in-law or my friend that owns a business. Like, could you do the same thing for them? And so that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah. So anyways, the 3 steps, the 3 things you can do is be honest, be likable,
Yep.
right? And know your craft, be knowledgeable, right? And actually be knowledgeable. And then the 3 ways, the worst but still effective way is just ask. The next best is kind of set them up and then ask. But really the best way is do such a good job and be setting them up the whole time to where they're offering it at the end. So anyways, you do that. And when people watch you, they probably don't realize that that's what you're doing the whole time. But that's why Kendal's so good at getting referrals. And I've seen him do it, and it's great, right? It's awesome. So anyways, I did want to go over that, but now let's get on to ERC specific.
I love that. That was
stuff.
awesome. You hit it on the head.
Thanks.
Did great.
I feel like you hit it on the head, and I just explained to people what you actually do. So, okay, I want to talk about picking a lane. So, Sean, I'm going to let you ask this question because you get to see a lot of the back end of like where deals come from. And we noticed early that Kendal and his group kind of would find little lanes and then they would kind of stick there. So why don't you ask Kendal this question?
Kendal, the question I want
Sean.
to ask you
Okay.
is how did you find your lane? And knowing that, of course, people in your team had already found other lanes previously that we had to pivot and whatnot. So how exactly did you come into the home healthcare lane? Was it something you guys found? Was it something on the back end? Like, just kind of walk us through that process.
Yeah. So when we very first started this process, we didn't even know what lanes were. We were just going to every single business, knocking business after business. And that actually was a great way to start because that's how we found our market, right? And so there is certain reps that I have that focus on one specific market. Like I have a rep that loves construction companies and that's all he does, but he's comfortable with it. And so as we started down this lane, when we very first started, we didn't know what markets to pick from. And then as we started seeing the credits come through, we started figuring out, hey, there's certain markets that, because the whole goal of this program is to be in front of the owner. If you can't be in front of the owner, you're wasting your time. You could be working really, really hard, but if you can't get in front of the owner, it is a time waster. And generally, like it's very well known that the bigger the business is, it's harder to get in front of the owner. But the bigger the business is, the higher the credit is. So there's a trade-off there. And so what we did is as we kept going down, we started getting these credits coming back in, and we realized, hey, these certain industries are generally easier and they do have higher credits. So we got rid of a lot of small credits that we like stopped focusing on. HVAC companies, for example, for us, they weren't very profitable. They were hard to get a hold of the owner, and then they weren't a high return, and a lot of them DNQ'd. And so as we just started going down the lane, we realized, hey, what industries can we get in front of the owner the fastest, and which ones have the most employees? And so then when we identified those markets, now we've identified 4 markets that we really like. And other regionals will have different markets as well. So we like retail, manufacturing, home health specifically, and restaurants. Those are the 4 that we do really well in. And so because of that, our whole training is just around those 4 industries. There's more than, even if we had ERC for 10 years, we would never hit all those markets. There's more than enough of those markets. And so we've really honed in on those markets. So we've made slicks and training specifically for those markets. And really of those 4, we hone in on the home health market just because the refund's really high and the owner is generally in the building every time we go in.
Yeah, and you guys have established yourselves. You have so much credibility in that lane that
Correct.
I mean, you're comfortable talking about it because most people are like, oh no, we've heard of this group that does it specifically for these guys. In fact, that's right. I need to reach out to him. Like you get people reaching out to you daily on, oh, this other company, were you guys going to talk to us? Like this other company came and approached us, but like we're just kind of waiting for you guys. Like, were you going to talk to us or do we need to initiate this?
In fact, I woke up this morning to a text message of a guy that says, hey, I've been waiting. This is in North Carolina. Hey, I've been waiting for you to come by. I thought my brother said you were going to come by at some time, but here's my info that he said to send you. And he sent me all the documents, and it's a 60 employee home health one this morning. So that's what I woke up to. And I haven't even talked to him yet. So
one important thing that Kendal said in there is that even if this was for a longer period of time, there's so much in a target
So many
area. We
businesses.
just don't need to waste our time elsewhere.
Correct.
So That's awesome.
Yeah, nope, you're exactly correct.
Yeah, so and picking a lane, I think there's a lot of, so to get really good at this job, to really understand like the whole thing, it can take somebody new at this, it literally can take you months because there's so many nuances, there's so many one-offs, every business is different, right? And so that's why understanding the principles behind it, then once you understand that, you can really talk to any business and the principles apply, like whatever it is. But to get to that point, there's a really, really long learning curve. Getting in the lane early, focusing on one thing, becoming the master, jack of all trades or master of one. Become the master of a lane, and that is where you're going to see the most success. It's also where you're going to potentially get the most referrals.
Correct. On that same lines, for example, we have Kevin Arthur does really well with churches, right? Like he does very well.
Just to let the listeners know, Kevin Arthur is basically Kendall's mentor. But continue.
Okay. Anyways, no, just kidding. So he has done really well in churches. He's done a lot of churches, but I have no interest in getting in that field because by the time I got in that field and got people going, he's already figured out that niche market so well. And same thing, like we've known home health is amazing for a year now, but a lot of people when they start, they're always asking, well, what are we doing that you're not doing? It's just, we picked a lane and established ourselves and decided, hey, there's money in this lane. We're only hitting this lane. We're going to do sprint as fast as we can. And now that we've established it, they're coming to us now. So it's flipped and it's been the coolest thing, but it wasn't like that for the first 3 or 4 months. We had to go out and acquire these businesses and now they're coming to us. It's really cool.
So for people listening, especially for reps, right? And this is what I would do. If you've been doing this for a while, go through the companies that you've helped that have signed, that you can see how they qualified and what areas they're in. And I would go through those. I'd look for any trends in there. I'd find a lane, and then I would go back to those people and explain to them that you really want to focus on how, like, man, I loved helping you. That was honestly, I felt really good about what we did with you guys, and I felt like you had a good experience too. I would like to help more people in your industry, and I'd really want to focus there. Can you help me introduce? And they might say, oh yeah, man, there's a show in 2 weeks. That's where everyone's going to be. Why don't you come and I can introduce you to everybody, right? Yep. Or come and set up a table there. Or, hey, we have a group that meets once a month. In fact, do you want to get on for 5 minutes and speak to everybody on a Zoom call? Like literally just asking that sometimes can get you into a lane. And then if that happens, then get with your leaders and really come up with a cool system. That's what I love that you guys did is you actually developed a whole system around that world. Like you created your own material. We help as much as we can, but you guys have made videos, you've made slicks, you've made things specific to your lane that has helped you gain credibility and made it simpler for the people you're working with and very applicable to them. It's been really cool to watch. So if you're an experienced rep, go through your hub and look at the deals you've done. If you're a new rep, so now I want to talk about new reps anyway, but if you're a new rep, then get with your leader and have your leader help you pick a lane and then focus on that one thing. Don't make this 3-month-long learning curve. Make it a 3-day learning curve. Become a master of that lane and then run with it and start there. But
there's and on that note, because Kendal did this in a time when we were still kind of figuring it out and Kendal was going from different business to different business. But we do have industry analysis sheets that have 9 target industries. Go through your hub if you've been doing this and find some targets, and we can always identify new areas. But if not, we've got 9 target areas that you should just hit and spend your time on. And then you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, which Kendal is just willing to go out and do work. He's willing to just go out in the field, knock doors, talk to people. That's really, really important. Things don't fall in your lap. You have to work to create those opportunities. So just don't be uncomfortable. Pick your lane and then spend the time it takes to get good at it. And that means embarrassing yourself and talking to people and maybe learning some things, but it's okay to burn a few things initially so that you can learn.
I love that. Awesome. Okay. So for new reps, so for people who just jumped into this, the funny thing is when I hear anyone be like, no, it's saturated now. You guys, this has been going for 2 years and there's 2 years left. There's no such thing as saturation in a sprint like this, right? There's just not.
In fact, I don't know if you've ever.
I'm late to the game. I wish I was here a year ago. Yeah, of course you do. But guess what? It's still so fresh.
I don't know if you've reiterated this on other podcasts, but ERC is easier now. I swear it's easier now than it was when we first started. So when we very first started in Reno, our whole pitch was, this is what ERC is. No one knows what it is. It's not a scam. It's an actual IRS thing. That was what your whole pitch was, not how they qualified.
All we were doing was educating. We weren't even... half the time they didn't have enough time to even have us tell them about our company.
Correct.
By the time we were done making them think it wasn't a scam, they're like, hey, I got a meeting I got to get to.
So now when you go out though, everyone has heard of ERC. So you're not explaining what ERC is anymore. You're explaining, hey, why have you not done ERC yet? Oh, you don't know about, okay, this is just, yeah, you've misunderstood this one thing about it. Like, oh, your accountant, doesn't think you qualify. Well, let's dive into that. Like, it's totally different, but because there's so much more saturation, it's so much easier to sell because it's informed and it's quick now. And the other thing too is there's nothing that I love more when I go out to knock. If I run into someone that says, oh yeah, we already filed for ERC, that to me is like a golden person because that person already trusts the system. And I guarantee he has friends that he has not asked for, or that whoever set him up did not ask for referrals. And that's how you win. There was one particular instance with a guy that I went in North Carolina, and he already did it. He got a $60,000 credit, and he referred me to 11 people that day. And that's like, it just took off, and it's just been fireworks from that one person.
And just so we're clear, that was not somebody who used our company. Kendall went in, talked to this owner. He was like, oh yeah, we already did it. It was great. We got 60 grand. He didn't sit there and, try to well, did they leave some on the table? Was there any meat left on that?
I think they did. That's the thing is I looked at it and to me, it was like, hey, there might have been a quarter or two left, but I was more interested in you've got friends, and the person that said, I promise you, didn't capitalize on you. And that was what I was trying to do.
No, it's awesome. And that created a huge lane. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I have value in every door, right? So I never go talk to somebody that I don't take something away from. There's awesome. No such thing as I've never knocked on a door where I didn't learn something about the other businesses around them, or in residential, their neighbors, the neighborhood, who's the most if it's somebody cool, they just I'm like, cool. I know there's two people on the street that are just going to buy from whatever I try to sell. I'm like, who are those two people? Dude, just tell me, and they'll tell me, right? So there's not a business that you can talk to where you can't gain something from that conversation, and you're so good at that, I promise. But okay, new reps. I'm a new rep. I'm just getting into this. Mm-hmm. When you first hear it, it seems simple. When you kind of dive in, it seems, oh man, do I need to go read a 200-page tax code? And it almost feels overwhelming. What do you do to just get started if you're a new rep? What would your first week look like?
Yeah, good question. So
in hindsight, I promise he's the best doing this. What would you do in your first week?
In hindsight, I would dedicate, the very first thing I would do is make up your mindset that for 2 straight weeks, you're going to be sprinting as fast as you can, talking to as many businesses as you can. That's the very first thing that I'd be doing. Because people that are like, hey, I think this is going to work out, I don't know, they drag their feet a little bit. So the first thing is I would say sprint for, get that in your mindset that you're going to sprint no matter what for 2 straight weeks.
I love that.
And obviously more than that, but at 2 weeks, if you sprint for 2 weeks, you will have success. So the 2 week is almost the threshold.
And that goes back to just getting comfortable and just go to work.
Just throw yourself out there.
Awesome.
The second thing I would do is with that industry list that you talked about, those 9 industries, identify 4 industries that you want to do. And every single day on Spotio, if you're using Spotio, which is incredible, go and identify those 4 and always plan the night before. Charles says this perfectly. What's your quote you always say about planning the night before?
Yeah, go to bed on purpose with a purpose. Wake up on purpose with a purpose.
Yeah, I love that. I live by that. So if you're planning the night before and you
the original
already know,
PPP.
If you so as a new rep, make up your mind that you're going to sprint as hard as you can. Without anything getting in the way, work the hours. The second thing is identify the industries that you want to target. So instead of just knocking, I would identify 4 industries, 10 businesses in each 4. So you have 40 businesses or more every single day that you're going to go hit. So you already know who you're going to talk to before you talk to them. And then from there, the next thing is learn ERC, but learn to explain ERC as if you're explaining it to a 3rd grader. Those are the 3 things is make up your mind that you're doing this, know who you're talking to before you talk to them. And then the second thing is explaining ERC in such a simple form. So for example, if I'm around a manager and I'm a brand new rep, I am learning ERC, I would turn around and rephrase it over and over and over again until I can rephrase it to a 3rd grader and have them cite back what I'm talking about, making it in such a simple form.
Yeah, if it takes you 2 minutes to explain what ERC is, then you don't understand it well enough. And you need to get to where you can, I always say, I know I understand something when I can explain it in 1 sentence.
You're exactly correct.
Right? And so work it down to where it's 1 sentence. And then if they ask you questions, know it well enough to be able to dive in, but be able to explain it in a sentence and they'll stay with you. If you explain something, I call it hovering, right? New reps hover because they don't actually understand. So they over explain. Oh, I forgot. I heard this thing too. I should probably throw that in there because that seemed important. Yep. But they hover in that step. They don't progress the sale. And when they stop, and then they're also never including the business owner, right? So
Correct.
when they finally take a pause, the business owner is like, "Oh, well, hey, leave me your card.
Yep.
I don't know what you're talking about." And they stop you there. So get to where you can explain who ERC Pros is in one sentence.
Yep.
What ERC is in one sentence. How we help you in one sentence. Once you do that, then you'll feel, the business owner will feel like you know what you're talking about, and you can act the part much better.
Correct.
Right. And the other advice I give to new reps is slow down. And ask questions. Ask questions about things that don't even have anything to do with this, but it gives you time to compose yourself.
Correct.
Right? Let them talk. And a lot of times they're going to tell you things that, oh, cool, I don't have to keep explaining. Yeah, no, I've heard of ERC. Okay, cool. Then I'll stop this 7 minute, you know.
So we touched in part A about you've got that first 60 whatever seconds when you meet with somebody, and then you've got a little bit more at the end. It's more like 30 seconds. So studies actually show that the normal adult right now has an attention span of like 60 seconds on a topic when they first hear. They make their mind whether they're going to hear it or not. So when you do over explain, you just lose them. That's just studies show that. So that's why you keep it short, keep it simple. If they engage and ask questions, now you're no longer in that little time frame because they're engaged and they've made that decision. But initially on each topic you hit, you have to keep spiking, and you got to keep it simple enough that their attention span is engaged, because if not, you just lose them, and it's not for the fault of a bad product. It's just the way the brain works in psychology. So use it to your advantage.
Okay, last question for new reps. Do they need to know everything before they can be good at this job?
Absolutely not. No. In fact, sometimes they want to overcomplicate. They want to learn too much. Really, it's just like there's only 8 things that an owner needs to know. There's 8 questions that you have to answer with an owner. So if you can even answer those 8 questions, like that's the most simplest form.
Give us a couple of those.
What is ERC? How do I qualify? Where does it come from? What a lot of people don't understand is like, hey, where does ERC come from? It's from the IRS. Like, that's a simple explanation. How do I receive my money? And then who are you guys and how do I pay you? Like, where do you come in? Like, it's very simple. So really starting from the top, where does it come from? So the IRS. What is it? ERC. Explain what ERC is. How does it work? It works by $26,000 calculation based off of your payroll. It's not a loan. It's not a grant. It is a refund based off of staying open during COVID. And then how do I qualify? There's 3 ways you qualify. It's either 1, 2, or 3. And then who are you? We're ERC pros. This is what we do. This is what we charge. And then
how does the process work?
And then, how does the process work? And what do I need to do?
And when do I get my money?
Exactly.
That's good. Honestly.
Yep. That's it.
Anyone who thinks they need to know more than that to be successful at this job, they're looking for excuses.
Correct.
Right.
For example, reps will try to understand how their credit works, like $5,000 in 1 year and then $7,000 per quarter. None of that is applicable to an owner. They don't care for that. They just want to know that, hey, am I receiving a refund based off of my employees? That's what they care about.
Yeah. And then the last thing I would say there, though, is if they're asking you questions and you don't know the answers, it's okay to say, I don't know, but I'll find out. Correct. That is the best way to answer a question that you don't know. Is I actually don't know, but I will find out and I'll get back to you. It gives you a reason to get back to them. Value. And they know you're not BSing them. I actually love that answer when new reps do that. So, and then write down the questions that you don't know the answers to. And that night, that's why you have a manager. That's why you have somebody above you, because they know what they're doing probably better than you. Go ask those questions, find those answers. Tomorrow, how much more confident are you going to be that you just figured out the answer to 6 objections that you didn't know how to answer, and then write down 6 more the next day? That's how you get good quick.
And if they're a good manager, they're going to let you go out and figure out your own question. They're not going to tell you the answer before you have the question. Like, that's the thing, is like when you're out there, they're throwing you out to the wolves. You're going to come up with your own questions. I promise you're going to listen to them way more when you ask the question as opposed to them telling you the answer first. So don't be scared to go out and like do it the hard way. Like learn.
I promise it's the best way to do it. It is the fastest way to get to your learning curve.
And that point was super important for new sales reps. When you don't know, if you can confidently get the information and come back, you actually build value. When people shoot from the hip with answers that aren't factual, that doesn't build trust, and owners can see that. But when you can confidently go get an answer and come back, now they actually have more reason to trust you because they know you're not going to lead them astray. You will only get them the correct information.
And
you can build value.
And my favorite way to answer a question is say, I don't know, but I will find out. If I call you tomorrow at this time, would you be free so I can answer that question for you?
I love that.
And then if you don't call them at that time, then just don't call them ever, right? So call them at that time, because what it does, it shows you that you're willing to follow through. Dude, any business owner is going to respect that kind of hustle and that kind of like follow through. It's huge. Sometimes I know the answer to things, and I'll still use that to build that credibility that I'm going to follow through with what I say.
It's a great way of how to get a phone number too, a personal owner's cell phone number, right?
Hey, you know what? I will text you. I promise. I'm going to work really hard till 5 o'clock. At 5 o'clock, I'm going to find that answer to you. I'll just text you the answer because I know you're busy. What's your number?
Beautiful.
It's
Beautifully done.
Dude, thank you. Okay, Jared Dyer and I are going to, this is a part I'm actually most excited for. And I want this to actually go to both you guys because, Sean, you're overcoming objections on the back end of these probably more than anybody in the company. And Kendal, you're going to go over some of them that you hear up front as a salesperson. So Jared and I are going to hit you with questions that are typical things you're going to hear from business owners. And feel free to both answer if you have a good answer for them, or just one at a time. But Jared, you want to start?
Yeah, the one that I hear a lot is, well, I have my own tax guy, my own CPA, so like I'm just gonna go with him. But thanks for your time.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm super excited that you have your own tax guy. I'll bet he's wonderful. I'm assuming that the reason why you still have him is because he's a good accountant. Is that right?
Yeah, we've been with each other, working with each other for like 10 years.
Awesome. Yeah. So the thing about most CPAs is most CPAs understand accounting really well. With the employer retention credit, it's such a very specific thing. Has he ever brought it up to you before?
No, we did the PPP, but that was about it.
Okay. So the thing is with the employer retention credit, it is such a niche thing. You have to be very careful with how you do it. Most accountants, when you look at it, there's two ways to qualify. There's either revenue reduction or governmental orders. And most accountants, if the revenue wasn't low enough, they don't want to touch it because it's so complex and you have to justify it. You have to have a firm or a research department that will justify it with the IRS, or else you get in trouble. And that's what our whole company is built on. If you have a revenue reduction, do it with your own accountant. They probably would have already done it for you. But if not, let us go out and make sure it's justified to make sure that you're not going to get in trouble with the IRS. And like I said, that's our whole entire job, is to do it that way.
Yeah. Another thing I like to throw in with that one is, oh, perfect. I can't wait to meet him. We actually work with your CPAs just so they understand, because there's things you got to do on the back end of this to make sure it's all compliant. But we walk your CPA through all of that. Unless he's going to do 1,000 of these, he doesn't want to learn the whole law, but that's what we're here for.
That's beautiful.
Right.
Sometimes pushing creates that division, right? So what you don't want to do is do that, which Kendal just described perfectly. Yep. So that's awesome. We want to work with your CPA.
I love that.
Your CPA handles taxes. This is a payroll tax, not an income tax. That's why your CPA hasn't done it yet. So first of all, bring him on board. Explain there's a separation because this is payroll taxes, and then just move forward with them involved.
That's beautiful. Being on the same team together. That's awesome.
Okay, the next one I hear a lot is, oh, we looked into it and we don't qualify. Oh, is this for the ERC? Okay, yeah, we looked into it and we don't qualify.
So what happens is there's actually, and I love that objection. Thank you for bringing that up. That's the number one thing that most businesses talk to us about. And that's actually where we're such a large firm, is because of businesses that looked into it that didn't think they qualify. So what happens is, let me make sure you fully understand how businesses qualify. Because I'm assuming if I asked you why you don't qualify, why is it?
We made money and we also got the PPP. So I don't even think we qualify.
So to give you an idea, 80%, right around 70 to 80% of all businesses that we've done, we've done almost $500 million in credits, qualify based off of governmental orders, not revenue. In fact, revenue is an awesome way to qualify, but if we only did that, there'd be significantly less businesses that qualify. When the IRS wrote the rules, they wrote it for revenue and for governmental orders, and you can qualify for one way or the other. And that's where we find this niche, this market is based off of the orders. And you are in an industry, like you mentioned, that COVID did affect you significantly. It's just a little bit more work, which is why we have a business.
And I often give an answer that ties also back to the CPA question, and that is that because the majority are actually dealing with governmental orders, it's no longer just a calculation that a CPA does, which is why yours may not have done it. Now we get into tax law. So we actually have tax attorneys who understand this and look at it like a case study on tax law and how it's going to be viewed. And that's important. That's why we need our database, our tax attorneys. So if you know that you're going after governmental orders, that's a good way to bring value as well, and still give their CPA value, but separate what we can do for them.
Yeah. So another way I love to answer that one is I'm like, oh, I love that you guys are proactive enough to look into it. That means your CPA is on the ball. That's awesome. One thing that CPAs probably didn't have time to do is go sift through the potentially thousands of different restrictions and governmental orders that came out, because that's not his job. And we get that. What we like to do is actually we work with your CPA. Let us just go through our database. We've already compiled all that. In fact, it's the biggest one that I know of in the whole nation. Let your CPA just check with us and make sure there's no government orders that he might have missed, because most likely he didn't have time. He didn't have a month to go through that for you.
That's beautiful.
Right. So again, these are all just different ways. Any of these work. The main thing is just you're overcoming that objection and moving forward.
And the thing that I love, one of the things that both of you guys point out so well is that in both objection, you're using their accountant not to like, hey, it's not us versus your accountant. It's, hey, we're all on the same team here. Like, yeah, you're right. Your accountant doesn't have time. That's not what you're not paying him to do that. You're paying him to run your business, right? That's what you're paying him for. And so like, let us work with him. It shouldn't have to bother you. Let's just get in front of your accountant, like working together. That's like the best way to overcome that objection. Yeah. It will get you in front of them. And
my favorite way to get in front of the accountant, once you're in front of the accountant, then we're good. Then they'll actually usually look into it, right? Because if you go in front of the accountant and tell them they were wrong, no chance. But if you get on their team, then we're going to see if you qualify. So my favorite line is, I have good news for you. I was like, not only do I speak owner, I speak accountant. Do you mind if I just meet? I would just want to introduce myself to him. I'll give him my number too. I just want him to have my information so we can like double check our database. And then I just like start walking, like I'm trying to get into a house or something, right? Okay, the last one I want to ask, and then there's one last thing I want to talk about, and then we'll get you out of here, because I know Kendal has another call with a company that he has to get to. I love this. So how do you... I know that you bring up the fee and everything, and you're very upfront with it. So when somebody reacts with, gosh, that seems like a lot, our PPP, like we only have, our bank helped us with that. Why do you guys charge so much? That seems high.
The reason why we charge 15% is because if it wasn't, we have a bunch of back end with accountants and things like that go through and they do an extensive amount of research, and we are the best company that's out there. So if you're looking for the lowest price, then there's other firms that will do it for significantly less. But because of all the back end research and the accounting work that we do, we do charge a higher percent because we back up like what we're doing.
Yeah, and I also make sure they know, hey, 15 to 20% is the industry average.
Standard,
This really does take a lot more time than just fill an application. This is sometimes weeks, sometimes even months of work goes into this. And so, but the nice thing is you don't pay anything until you get the money back. And so we're aligned with you. If you don't qualify, we're going to be upfront with you on that. But we'll do the work. And then when you get paid, that's when we take the fee. And so don't worry, you're not going to pay anything unless you get something back.
On that same lines too, one of the things because if you don't address that before, so one thing that that's super important is addressing that before they ask the question. If I can answer your question before I know what you're going to ask, so I might as well address it on the head, right? So before you ask the question about 15%, I'm explaining, hey, let me explain like how our firm works. And I'm going through, you do the application, we do this process, we have a back-end process, it goes through this tier, this tier, this tier, we look it over, we have a tax attorney, we come back to you, we have a 65-page packet that goes to you. And because of all of this huge process, that's, it is a 15% fee, but that's the process. So I've already built a ton of value. And by doing that, they don't ever question the 15% anymore. But if the beginning, if they're like, well, how much do you charge? I'm like 15%, they're going to be like, whoa, that seems pretty steep, because I didn't build value into why it's 15%.
Yeah, whether it's 15%, 20%, 25%, it doesn't matter if you've built the value. If you haven't built the value, then there's no reason for them to understand why. So yeah, proactively overcome. That's going to be a question.
You have to
whether they ask it or not, that is a question they're going to think about. So you need to attack it from the front, right? And we'll do a whole overcome objections training where we talk about that anyway, but that is the best way to attack this.
Again, back to not pushing, right? If fee gets brought up, I always say you're under no obligation to move forward with this. As soon as they don't feel like you need their sale, they oftentimes want what you're providing. And so I'll just say you're under no obligation to move forward with this, but let me tell you why you want to, because this is everything that we have to offer. This is what we have to offer down the road. And they want that eventually when they realize you're not willing to just like do anything to get it. What is it that you have that they want so bad? And I always will start with, you're under no obligation to move forward.
That's awesome.
But let me tell you why you want to.
And I think a lot of companies get stressed out about getting an audit. So knowing that we have a 50-page audit-ready substantiation package that we deliver, that in itself is a huge credibility.
Yeah, minimum 50 page, right? Some of them get up to like 200 pages for real. No, here, especially for new people, I do want you to the confidence that if you're new here, you might think that this is the same as every other company doing ERC. When companies actually like compare apples to apples, I don't think anyone's ever gone with somebody else, because the amount of work that we do to substantiate it, the audit ready pack, all of these things, the other firms just aren't doing this stuff, right? And I promise you, just like have confidence in what they're getting, they're getting more than what they're paying by going through us, just for the peace of mind that it was done right. I promise it's worth 20%. It just is. And make sure that they know that and be confident in that. So, okay, here's the last thing I want to go over, and we'll touch on it quick, because I know you got to get off. In this company, there's one person that has an excuse to not go out and do personal sales more than anybody else, and that's you, Kendal, because you have the biggest network putting in deals. Like, honestly, like about half of our credits have gone through your network, right? And so you easily could tell yourself, hey, I'm so busy making sure these guys are being taken care of, I don't have time. But you're also one of our top salespeople in our company, right? To say that doesn't correlate would be naive, right? Like, you're leading from the front. We talk about leading from the front so much, but you have every excuse not to, and you are getting like just as many or more sales than most of our reps who their only job is to get sales. So what is it in you that pushes you to, when you have an excuse not to, and you would make great money not even doing one personal sale, what is driving you right now to also be one of the top reps? This is like everyone, please listen to this. It might be a bad answer, I don't know, but whatever this is, like, if you can figure out how to do this, then you win.
Number one, I'm super competitive. I hate I'm competitive. I think, and that's I think so. We all are. But the second thing is if I don't understand, there's two things. Second thing is, if I don't understand the product well enough, then people underneath, like as a leader, they're not going to look for answers anymore. Like, if I don't actually fully understand the product, they're going to go elsewhere for answers. So like, as a leader, I feel obligated to make sure I understand the product better than anybody. The third thing is the opportunity is so good that I can't even sleep at night if I'm not taking advantage of it. Like, there's never going to be an opportunity that's ever this good again. And so it's crazy. Like, you go out and you bust your butt for however long, like in a year, there is potential to make more in a year than most people make the last 12, 15, 20 years combined. Like, there's so much money, and the opportunity is so great that I get so excited, and I feel like I'm missing out. Every day I'm here in the office and I'm taking care of someone else's problem, I'm missing an opportunity to make money, like to make more money, and to go out there and so I guess that's probably the biggest thing is I'm so excited about the opportunity that I'm trying to balance both. And if it was up to me, I would just be out in the field the whole time, because it is that exciting.
That's awesome. So, hey, Kendal, I know you got to get on a call, so I want to say thank you so much. This hour is probably, if any new rep could listen to 1 hour of training or 1 hour of how to do this, I really think that, like, modeling kind of what you've done is huge. And so thank you for being so honest. Thank you for being willing to share. A lot of our industry, a lot of times you figure out something that works and you hoard it because you look at other people's competition. I love the fact that you're willing to come on and actually like be honest with what you're doing and where you're finding success. And Kendal's just a good dude, and he actually wants other people to succeed, and he's willing to share these things. And most people in your situation or position, they wouldn't have shared these things. They wouldn't have been this so transparent. I promise you. So I really appreciate it, man, for real. Yeah. Sean, any last words?
No, thank you, Kendal.
Thank you, guys.
Do you want to tell Kendal how cool he is before we get off?
Come on, Jared. Every time Kendal comes into a room, the whole room just like brightens up.
Oh my goodness. Okay, let's hit this thing. Just kidding.
All right. It doesn't hurt to have a perfect smile either, everybody. But all right, Kendal.
Thank you,
man.
guys. That was
you.
awesome.
Thank you.